Ashafata tonight. Calls are growing for better working conditions for migrant workers after a man dies at a farm this week.
It is an ongoing crisis as a direct result of federal immigration policy that takes away power from people, from the very people who grow our food.
Now a group is asking the Jamaican Minister of Labour to advocate on their behalf. Plus,
the veterans of today and years ago fought for their democracy.
the longest-running Veterans Parade in the world marks its 100th anniversary. We're going to take you there. And
never dreamed of this. This is a really amazing thing, and I get to share it with a lot of people.
A man from Whitby makes history as the first person with a disability to cross all 5 Great Lakes on a paddleboard.
This is CBC Saturday News.
Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. We're actually going to begin with some breaking news that we're tracking just this hour. Toronto police have just confirmed that a ferry crashed into Jack Layton Terminal. 12 people are being treated at the scene by paramedics. 2 children have been taken to hospital with minor injuries. We continue to track this story for you, and for all the latest details, make sure to head to our website, cbcnews.ca. But let's return to our top story, because advocates for migrant workers are calling for change after a Jamaican man died at a Norfolk farm this week. Meanwhile, workers in Niagara are alleging poor working conditions at 2 separate farms. Dale Manuktuk has that story.
Smiling and dancing, happy moments captured of Garvin Yap. According to the Ministry of Labour, the 57-year-old died on August 14th while operating equipment at Burlow's Best Farm in Norfolk County. In a statement, a lawyer for the farm says the Van Burlows did not lose an employee. They lost a person they considered a member of their family. Their relationship with Garvin was forged over 34 years of employment at their family farm. Accordingly, they are devastated by his death. A candlelit vigil was held at the farm for Yap, and the ministry says the investigation is ongoing. Advocates for migrant workers say 3 people died in just the last week.
1 worker who died of a stroke, 2 who died in workplace accidents, 1 while driving a golf cart, 1 actually while producing tobacco and falling into a machine.
CBC News has only confirmed 1 of those deaths. Meanwhile, Jamaican workers in Niagara are calling out Kai Ween's family farm and Triguno fruit farms. They've penned a letter to the Jamaican Minister of Labour asking that he fight for change on their behalf.
People are living in, what they call like slave-like conditions, living in housing where rats are infesting their food, where they are facing physical abuse as well as verbal abuse on the daily, where they're being forced to work without pay.
Kai Weens chose not to comment on the allegations, and Triguno Fruit Farms did not respond in time for broadcast.
There's an absence of enforcement. Workers are working in dirty, dangerous, and deadly conditions, not because they want to, but because we have not created the oversight and the enforcement that's needed to protect migrant workers.
The Ministry of Labour says its inspectors have conducted over 3,000 field visits since March of 2020 and issued over 2,000 orders. While advocates dispute the claim, the ministry says that temporary foreign workers have the same rights as any worker in Ontario. Dale Manuktuk, CBC News, Toronto.
A man has died after being stabbed in a Scarborough apartment complex earlier today. Toronto police say the incident happened in the lobby of a building near Kingston and Glen Everest Roads. Emergency personnel rushed the man to a trauma center where police say he was pronounced dead. They are now saying it's a homicide investigation. There's no word yet on suspects, but police are gathering evidence at the building. Meanwhile, this morning in Brampton, a collision has left 3 people dead. Peel police say it happened around 2 a.m. on Conestoga Drive and Elmvale Avenue. There was only 1 vehicle involved in this collision. The police say the car hit a tree and then caught on fire. That car was soon, quote, engulfed in flames, and all 3 occupants were pronounced dead at the scene. Police have not released any identifying information about the victims. It is a milestone day honoring Canada's armed forces. Nearly 2,000 veterans marched today in the annual Warriors' Day parade. Last year was actually the 100th anniversary of the parade, but due to the pandemic, they had to wait until this year to mark the occasion at Exhibition Place. And Angelina King was there.
Amid the pomp and bagpipes, marching bands, and cheering crowds, veterans like Fraser McKee just want the public to acknowledge Canada's armed forces and learn about its significance.
The important thing is to let people see all these people, all the people are going to be in the parade. They're all serving one way or not all, but most of them in the military, and that's their dedication.
McKee is 97 and served in the Second World War. He retired as a Navy commander and executive officer, and as he humbly puts it, had an ordinary experience.
Nobody shot at me, and I never shot at anybody that I knew about. That was pretty typical for the Navy. You didn't tend to see the enemy. He might torpedo you, you might end up swimming or dying, but you wouldn't see anything.
Still, there are stories he's proud to share, including close calls battling storms out at sea.
The alarm bells went off, and I figured, well, we're all going in the water, we're all going to die. Thinking back, I'm sort of amazed at myself in a way that it didn't bother me. That's what I did for the country.
The Warriors' Day Parade is the longest-running veterans parade in the world, first established in 1921. Organizers say it's all about honoring and respecting those who sacrificed so much for Canada's freedom.
I want them to remember that the veterans of today and years ago fought for their democracy and the right to do what they do here in Canada.
One of those veterans was F. Elaine Irwin's late husband, Andrew Irwin, the first Sea Cadet in New Westminster, BC, to sign up for the Second World War.
So on D-Day, he was off of Juno Beach, manning the gun.
Irwin says it's important she attend events like the parade to honor her husband and keep his story alive.
I think he'd be proud of me. So, because he would have done it. So, and I was right there with him all the way.
Showing the importance of supporting those who served, something McKee continues to do himself.
This is my life has been in the Navy. Now I write naval history, do book reviews on the Navy and so on. But I'm glad I'm still with it and still able to do that. I'm 97 and a half, and I'm still working at that.
Proving serving his country is never ending. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Did you catch that? 97 and a half, still going strong. And a weekend of ceremonies continued in France today, marking the 80th anniversary of Dieppe. The ill-fated Allied raid of 1942 saw more than 900 Canadian soldiers killed, and many more were wounded or taken prisoner. The CBC's Katie Nicholson looks at how that sacrifice is still being remembered.
Another day of honoring Canadian soldiers, this time in Portville, where on this bridge, this plaque was revealed. This is for Lieutenant Colonel Charles Merritt, a Victoria Cross-winning officer who came from Vancouver. Merritt is credited with saving the lives of many officers. During the raid 80 years ago, he crossed this bridge multiple times under heavy German fire, trying to shepherd his soldiers to safety after everything went wrong. 160 soldiers died in this area. They came from regiments in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Now, Merritt's son, Cecil, was here today for the commemoration. Here's what he had to say.
My father was never a braggart, and so it's very difficult for me to accept these accolades on his behalf. I only cherish the fact that he did earn them, and I'm the one that recognizes them.
Merritt also talked about how touched he was by how many young people participated in the ceremony this morning, including a young bagpiper from Winnipeg. She wrote a piece for the bagpipes as a tribute to a fallen soldier from the same regiment she's a part of.
What inspired the tune that I wrote was actually some of the research that I had found about my soldier, who is Private Daniel Norman Benoit. So he as well was a private with the Camerons, and we both enlisted at the age of 18, and I kind of felt a connection to that. And the whole inspiration behind the piece was just really about like bringing him back to the regiment. And so I wanted it to be more of a retreat march, and so that's how I wrote it, because he's like, you know, retreating back to his roots.
Being here and playing that tribute in the place that Benoit died, she said, was profound, as was visiting his grave and walking in his footsteps. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Portville.
In other news, the World Juniors for the gold medal. CBC's Aaron Collins is outside the arena where all the action is taking place and joins us with a preview.
Natasha, they're 6-0, undefeated on their way to the gold medal. Beat Czechia last night, the formerly known as the Czech Republic, and they're going to be playing Finland at 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time tonight. Finland defeated Sweden 1-0 to punch their ticket to the finals today. Interestingly, the two teams have never actually played for the gold in this tournament, despite the fact that since 2014, those two teams have won 6 of the 8 championships, 3 each. So it should be a good match. Both teams are coming in fairly strong. I think Canada is largely thought to be the favorite here, but it should be a good, tight game. Of the top 6 leading scorers in the tournament, 3 from each team, so it should be a fairly balanced match. I think generally the folks that know about these things say Canada might have a slight edge because of goaltending. Now, I will say this, I think there's a little bit of disappointment. The Americans beat Canada in the last World Junior Championship. There was some hope there'd be a rematch. Not going to happen. Czechia knocked the United States out to punch their ticket to the semis, and of course Canada beat them to get to the finals. But should be a good game. Countdown is on.
That is Mike Shorman, who is making history as the first athlete with disabilities to cross all 5 Great Lakes in just one summer. He's already crossed Lakes Erie, Huron, Superior, and Michigan earlier this summer. Lake Ontario was the final hurdle. Shorman left New York yesterday and paddled all night, arriving earlier this afternoon at H2O Park in Toronto. We caught up with the man of the hour, humble in reflection of the journey he just undertook.
This wasn't just me, this was a team of 30 people who drove boats and who dedicated the last 3 months, 10 months to make sure that I could do this.
Shorman has Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, which paralyzed and collapsed the right side of his face and dealt him very serious mobility, vision, speech, and hearing problems. You're looking at footage of the 5 crossings. This footage has been provided to CBC Toronto, and this is all being done to fundraise for jack.org, which supports youth mental wellness. Shorman also wanted to challenge stereotypes by showing what people with disabilities are capable of. He was a top Canadian paddleboarder before his diagnosis and had to completely retrain his brain to walk and paddleboard again.
He's pulled himself up. He's done everything he had to do, and he planned this out. It's something he wanted to achieve, and he has. It's a huge thing that he's accomplished, and we're really proud.
It was a huge challenge for a man who at times can't stand up. And to do this, oh my God, it's life-altering for him to have this accomplishment, to know that he did this after what he was told he would not be able to do.
Shorman had attempted unsuccessfully to cross the Great Lakes last year, but this year's successful completion took him a total 84 hours. Matt Hamill from the Weather Network joins us now with a first look at your weather. Matt.
Great to be with you, Natasha. And yes, we are looking at actually right now a severe thunderstorm warning for parts of the GTA. That's including Brampton, a bit of Mississauga and Caledon. So heavy downpours and this kind of stormy action just affecting a little bit of the GTA, kind of teeing up what's to come for tomorrow. Now, we have seen some heavy rainfall over the past few days, and it's been quite scattered in nature. For tomorrow, we have the potential for some heavy downpours with that thunderstorm activity, but you might miss it entirely. It is quite scattered in nature. This evening, the southwest part of the province already seeing some of that stormy activity, and then overnight, that does track closer towards the GTA, and that will really set us up for our Sunday. And you can see there's quite a bit of storm cells moving through, even around 2, 3 in the morning. Toronto might be seeing a bit of storm activity, and then yes, tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening, a bit more storm action is possible. And here's a look at the lightning potential heading into tomorrow. Quite a lot of that, so it could be one of those stormy days, or you might miss out on the rain entirely. Again, that is kind of the scattered nature of the system we're dealing with. Of course, the most severe storms, the greatest likelihood, not really for the GTA, more so for Kingston, Ottawa, and parts of Quebec. So if you're heading to the CNE tomorrow, it could be a nice day, but we'll also look ahead later in the program to your 7-day forecast, where it's showing maybe a few stormy days ahead.
It has been a day of heavy fighting in the capital of Somalia, and it actually all began last night when militants from an extremist group linked to al-Qaeda seized a popular hotel in Mogadishu. At least 20 people have been killed and many more injured. CBC's Julia Wong has the latest.
There was panic and chaos on the streets of Mogadishu Friday night after an attack at an upscale hotel popular with politicians. The terror campaign started with 2 car bombs at the Hyatt Hotel. Then, militants opened fire.
There were an estimated of 5 big explosions, and then there was a gunfire. The security officials said there were about 7 to 8 people who were very armed who stormed the hotel.
For hours, Somali security forces battled with the group, who took an unknown number of hostages. Large sections of the hotel destroyed by the fighting. The al-Qaeda-linked al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for the attack. Al-Shabaab has been fighting to overthrow the Somali government for more than 10 years.
The organization controls a significant chunk of rural Somalia. It is also an organization that exerts a much bigger political influence. Also, it's able to out-tax the state in even Mogadishu, which is under the control of the state, of the Somali government. So definitely this is an organization that I think remains an existential threat to Somalia.
Over the years, al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility for several other bombings. The group attacked the Westgate Mall in Nairobi in 2013 and killed about 150 university students in Kenya in 2015. Friday's attack was the first major one since President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud took office in May.
Definitely this is a large-scale complex attack, a clear demonstration of al-Shabaab's continued, I think, threat to the stability of Somalia, but also more crucially to the safety and security of Mogadishu.
Also in May, U.S. President Joe Biden ordered American troops to return to Somalia to help suppress al-Shabaab. On social media, the U.S. Embassy in Somalia said it strongly condemns the attack, extending condolences to the families of those who died. An opportunity to try and push back against a terrorist organization. Julia Wong, CBC News, Washington.
There are now concerns surrounding a second Ukrainian nuclear plant after a Russian missile today struck a town nearby. The plant is in the southern region, and it is Ukraine's second largest. Now, it comes a day after Russia agreed to the UN inspections at Ukraine's largest nuclear plant. The Zaporizhzhia site has witnessed several artillery incidents. Meanwhile, with renewed Ukrainian grain shipments continuing, the United Nations says it's working to get Russian grain and fertilizer to world markets. It says they're critical for world agriculture next year. Here in Toronto, this was the scene at Centennial Park. Many gathered to mark the 31st annual Ukrainian Independence Day commemoration. The event is hosted by the Ukrainian Canadian Congress Toronto branch. Organizers say the family event is an opportunity to celebrate their culture and stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine, as well as to share a message of gratitude with Canadians.
I just say thank all the Canadians who have supported the many Ukrainians who have come to Canada, and for those who continue to support Ukraine in its battle for their freedom and democracy.
We are less than 2 weeks away until back to school. Today, a community in Toronto came together with a goal to help prepare some students in need.
Parents that we deal with, a lot of them are on disability, and they were struggling before the pandemic. And then with everything, all the prices increasing, they're having a hard time to pay for anything and are looking for any help that they can get.
So having like the essentials that they need and something they don't have to stress about, they don't have to worry about, is so crucial to their success.
The fundraiser was organized by a nonprofit initiative called Toronto Cares. The funds will be used to provide 200 students in need from 7 different schools with backpacks and supplies for the school year ahead. It has been a long road for DJ Demers, a comedian from Kitchener, Ontario. Diagnosed with severe hearing loss early in life, he's since built a career and is making plenty of noise.
I've just been lucky enough to kind of keep hitting new milestones, and then eventually I moved to LA, and yeah, it was just something I wanted to try, and then now here we are 13 years later and I haven't stopped. I never even really talked about the hearing aid much until I got into comedy. So comedy's kind of been, a nice release for in that regard.
Demmer says his big break came when he was invited to perform on Conan after O'Brien saw him at Just for Laughs shows in 2014. He's since gone on to perform on Jimmy Kimmel Live, The Tonight Show, and in 2016 he was featured on America's Got Talent. Demers returns to Toronto tonight to play at the Paradise Theatre with the help of an ASL interpreter. He says tonight's show feels like a homecoming and that he's excited it will be accessible for the hearing impaired. Matt Hamill is back with your long-range forecast.
And that's right. We'll look ahead, and we do see, Natasha, over the next few days, a bit of stormy weather. Now, like most summer weekends in Toronto, a lot going on, particularly tomorrow, the 163rd rendition of the Queen's Plate horse race at Woodbine Racetrack. But yes, we do see that stormy activity for Toronto, even into Monday, Tuesday, but we're not expecting a total washout. Now, let's unpack what we're seeing for tomorrow. Again, we touched on this earlier in the program, some storm cells moving through. It's going to be quite scattered, so you might see bouts of heavy, intense rainfall. You might see nothing at all for your Sunday. Here's that risk map for our day tomorrow, and you can see the most severe storms expected more so in parts of eastern Ontario. Now, for tomorrow at the CNE, we are looking at that forecasted temperature of 25. So today, kind of that last day of heat before we do dip down in temperatures just a little bit. And heading into Monday, looking a lot like Sunday with lots of storms in the forecast. Once again, likely scattered in nature. Now we'll look a bit further ahead in our forecast as we check our 7-day for Toronto. The unsettled weather really punctuating earlier in the week, along with some cooler temperatures. Just 23 for Monday. Temps really building back towards the end of the week as we do get slightly above seasonal. Looking at our long-range temperature trend, yes, we do have that sort of an anomaly on Monday at 23 degrees, but just kind of stepping up into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, settling more to a seasonal pattern for the rest of the 2-week period. So a little bit of unsettled weather earlier in the week, but then we'll warm back up later next week.
Thanks, Matt. And that's it for our show tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Before we go, a story that's breaking just this hour. Toronto police have confirmed that a ferry has struck the dock. A number of people have been hurt, but we are hearing that the injuries are being described as minor. You can stay caught up with our news anytime by heading to our website, cbcnews.ca. Have a great night.